All right, everyone. Thanks for joining me today. All right, so I got a question for you guys. What do you call a man who takes over a government or a country through a coup, but then decides not to exploit the country, decides not to loot the country, not to do what his predecessors have done by being in bed with either Europe or the West to sell his people down the river? What do you call such a man who decides to improve the lives of his people by putting policies and implementations in place to improve the welfare and the state of his country? What do you call such a man who do these things? You'll call him remarkable, right? You'll call him extraordinary. You'll call him God sent. That is who Ibrahim Traoré is. That is who this 36-year-old, now confirmed as the president of Burkina Faso, that is who he is. Ibrahim Traoré is exemplifying the type of African leader that most of us, I know it's certainly me, most of us have been praying for years. Ibrahim Traoré is exemplifying the type of Pan-African spirit and what it means to be an African. And is the type of leadership and character that most of us, at least I know in my lifetime, there's only a few that have met this same type of personality type. Only a few is what most Africans have been praying for. And Burkina Faso is blessed to have such a person like him. We're going to talk about this man today because this is certainly not what the world thought they were going to get when he took over the country in 2022, September of 2022, in a coup. See, when Burkina Faso went through their coup, a country that had two coups in 1 year, one in January, and then he's in September of the same year. That was a country that everybody wrote off because it's bad enough for a country to have a coup. No one likes coups because historically, when you take over a government through a coup, those countries have never fared well. Those countries have never. It hasn't really helped those countries because it splits the countries in the middle, where one part of the country hates and is against the juntas that take over that country, and while the others are happy. So it splits down the middle. Either way, it's a structure that doesn't stand. When you have one that then had two in the same year, they were written off. There were words like dictator used to label this man by you know who, so-called Western media, who do nothing but propaganda all day long. We're going to talk about them today. You even had African heads of states and countries in Africa also condemn them. Now, I understand why they would do that. I understand that. Because again, as I mentioned, that coups historically have not boded well for those countries that had them in the past. I understand why they would be against them. But when you start hearing the Western media use dictator to label him, write him off before he even starts, and you start to hear the records I'm about to tell you about this man, the records that he's had since he's just been in that position, which has been a little over a year now. When I tell you the records that he's had, I'm going to ask the question at the end of this video. Do you think that Africa should have more of this type of man? Maybe not through the way he came in, but we're talking about the type of leadership that he exemplifies. I'm going to ask that question. I want you to tell me if you think that his leadership style and what he's doing is one that every African leader should emulate. First, let's start with these records. Let's give you the updates of what happened. This man has just been confirmed officially as the president of Burkina Faso by his people. He got over 60% approval of his people to be the president of Burkina Faso. Now you might ask the question, Why will a junta, military junta, who came into office through a coup, an act that most people frown on, such act, why will the people of Burkina Faso, 60% overwhelmingly, say they want him? He conducted a national consultation day, which is what you're watching right now. It happened on May 25th and 26th, where he asked the people to come out to then decide the next path forward. You know, the way we used to do it. You remember how we used to do it back in the days before we all let the Europeans and Western people bring their so-called democratic process into our lives, you know, all of that. You remember that's how we used to do it. You know, that's how the world was governed, you know, where you have the people show up in the town square and then everyone just cast their ballot or their voice as to who should rule or lead them. That's usually how we used to do it. You remember that? So you had the same type of thing. People showed up. You're watching this right now. You overwhelmingly see the crowd that showed up. And overwhelmingly, the whole crowd went crazy that they want him to lead them for the next 10 years. You didn't hear me. They want Ibrahim Traoré, the same military junta that the whole world wrote off. They call him a dictator. They say, hey, watch this. Burkina Faso is about to be under the rule of a dictator. The same people overwhelmingly said, we want him to rule us and to be our leader for the next 10 years. So they settled for 5. He said, we'll do this for 5 years, and then we'll see where we'll go from there. Now, the question is, why will any people want this? Are they crazy? No, they're not. Take a look at the crowd, and I'll be right back. Okay, so let's talk about this real quickly. Let's talk about this, because it's important for you to understand why a people want this. Because when you listen to the Western media regarding the story they're telling about about that situation, about the story about, you know, his administration now staying in position for the next 5 years, when you hear what they're saying about this, you would think there is a dictatorship. I want you to see these headlines. Here are a couple of headlines. All right, so let's start with Bloomberg. So Bloomberg, again, these are Western media. You know, these are the same propaganda media. I want you to hear the headlines. This is what they put out a couple of days ago, right after the national consultation day, where the people, 60% of the people, overwhelmingly said they want this man. Here's what they said. Bloomberg says, Burkina Faso's military leader set to stay in power until 2029. Now, when you hear that, what do you think you're thinking? Here we go again. He really is a dictator. He has now decided to stay in power. Not that the people chose him to be in power. You don't see any mention. There's no mention here of the citizens of Burkina Faso who overwhelmingly showed up at that rally and said, no, we want this man to lead us. No mention to that. They say Burkina Faso military leader set to stay in power until 2029. Here's BBC. You know how we love BBC. Such beauties. BBC says Burkina Faso extends military rule by 5 years. Again, no mention that the people of Burkina Faso, right, decided to overwhelmingly support the rule of this man for the next 5 years, which is what that headline should look like. But that's not what they're interested in. They want to give off the same propaganda they usually give off, which is there's a dictator in Africa and we need to get him out of there. Here's another one. Burkina Faso military rule extended for 5 years. Again, no mention of the people. No mention that the people have chosen him to be their leader for 5 years. Okay, so let me ask you a question. What is democracy? What is democracy? Isn't democracy the voice of the people, the will of the people? I mean, that's what you often hear the West and Europe throw around, that we need to have a democracy because the will of the people and the voice of the people must be heard. And so, the whole way of doing this is that you have a voting, you have an election, and you cast your vote, one man, one vote, right? And then at the end of the whole thing, they tally the votes, and whoever wins, the voice of the people have spoken. That's usually what you hear. The voice of the people have spoken on this. See, there was supposed to be an official election, which he promised to have in 2024. And officially, what we heard was that election did not take place because, according to him, the country was not secure enough to have a free and fair election. And so what they did was have the rally that they did. And overwhelmingly, he got the people's approval to not become the president. So he's now moved out from being a transitional president to now and officially the president of Burkina Faso. Now, here's the question I need to ask you, or the question you should be asking. Why? Why did the people want him? Was this under duress? Did the people get forced into this? Because I'm telling you, wait, you're going to find out from the same propaganda media. That's what they're going to say. You're going to find out. Now, let me tell you what he's done in the last year and a half since he became the transitional president and took over the coup. This man slashed his own salary and his minister's salary by 30%. Let me repeat that again. This man slashed his salary as well as his minister's salary by 30%. I don't know about you. I have not seen one leader in Africa in my lifetime that's ever done such things. None. He also then gave 50% increase to his workers, citizens who need it. He gave them 50% salary raise. Let me ask you a question. When was the last time you saw a president or head of state in Africa do such thing? Forget Africa. When was the last time you saw anyone in any country take a pay cut, right? And then increase the people, the people that they say that they are leading and the people that they say they're governing and they care about, right? When was the last time you saw any president, Africa or out of Africa, that do such thing? I know for me, I haven't seen one. He's a man they call a dictator. On top of that, let me show you what else he did. This man, we're talking about his record in the last year and a half. This man gave 400 tractors, 239 motorcycles, and 710 motor pumps to farmers so they can begin producing food to help them to begin cultivating and producing food so they can feed the country. On top of that, he has now declared, knowing fully well what his country is endowed with, the mineral resources, because Burkina Faso is blessed in gold. They have lots of them. Gold, limestone, cobalt are just a few of the minerals that this country is blessed with. He is now committed to building a mining company to mine the gold so that way they can begin exporting those golds out so that country can begin to benefit from the minerals of the country. Okay. The type of thing that we expect most African leaders to do, rather than sell our stuff at pennies on the dollar to Europe and the West, rather than being bad, where only a few rich in Africa loot the country's resources at the expense of their citizens, so that way the rich in England, in Europe, in France, in the United States can benefit from this. The stuff that African leaders have been doing, the stuff that his country and his so-called democratically elected president was doing before he was toppled in a coup in January. The stuff that Niger and also Mali, their country and their leaders were doing before they were toppled and deposed in a coup, the stuff that most African countries do to steal from their country so that we can benefit Europe, the West, and many other outside countries when their people are suffering and dying. That stuff, he's saying no, that it's time for his country to start benefiting from the resources that his country produces. On top of the fact, on top of all of that, what this man has demonstrated, what I see him, every time I see him open his mouth and I see him moving around, the way he moves, this man is always in his military gear. His motorcade, his motorcade is a simple military truck, not the lavish Mercedes-Benz, the fleets of Mercedes-Benz that we're used to seeing African leaders drive around, on top of the fact that they have 100 people driving right behind them that we normally see and we're used to seeing. None of that. None of the type of lavish lifestyle to the point that where you even had an African leader recently go to see the President of the United States and charters a $1.5 million luxury jet to go see a white president in the United States. When his people are in poverty in his country. That is what we're used to seeing. That's the type of leaders Africa is plagued with. The corrupt leaders that are only about themselves, their pockets, and pleasing Europeans, the West, and others outside of Africa. That's all we're used to seeing. This man goes to the Russia-African Summit. And he's the only one. He's the only one standing right next to Vladimir Putin in his military gear. Red beret, military gear. He doesn't have a fancy suit. He's not there showing out. He's not there trying to be something he's not. He's not there looting the resources of his country and being flamboyant, flashy, loud. The stuff we're used to seeing. African president, the moment they get into power, is all looting starting from that moment. He's not there doing that. He stands with all the other presidents. And he stands out like a sore thumb. I want you to take a listen to the speech that he gave during that Russia-African summit. And I want you to take a listen and pay attention to how he, this 36-year-old man, the message he has for African leaders about not being puppets to the West. Take a listen to this.
Pour ce qui concerne le Burkina Faso, aujourd'hui nous sommes confrontés depuis plus de 8 ans à la forme de manifestation la plus barbare, la plus violente du néocolonialisme, de l'impérialisme. L'esclavage qu'on tend encore à nous imposer. Nos dévanciers nous ont bien appris une chose. L'esclave qui n'est pas capable d'assumer sa révolte ne mérite pas que l'on s'apitoie sur son sort. Nous ne nous apitoyons pas sur nos sorts, on ne demande pas que quelqu'un s'apitoie sur notre sort. Le peuple burkinabé a décidé de lutter contre l'île terroriste en mesure de relancer son développement. Dans cette lutte, des vaillants peuples, des vaillantes populations se sont engagées à prendre les armes face au terrorisme, ceux que nous avons affectueusement appelés les VDP, des volontaires. Nous sommes surpris de voir les impérialistes traiter ces VDP de milices et de tout type. C'est décevant, parce qu'en Europe, lorsque des peuples prennent les armes pour défendre leur patrie, on les traite de patriotes. Mais là n'est pas le problème. Ce qui est le problème, c'est de voir des chefs d'État africains qui n'apportent rien à ces peuples qui se battent, mais qui chantent la même chose que les impérialistes en nous traitant de milices, en nous traitant donc d'hommes qui ne respectent pas les droits de l'homme. De quel droit de l'homme parle-t-on? Nous nous offusquons contre cela et c'est honteux. Il faut que nous, chefs d'État africains, nous arrêtons de nous comporter donc en marionnettes qui dansent à chaque fois que les impérialistes tirent sur les ficelles.
That is from a 36-year-old man whom the world wrote off the moment he came to power. This man has demonstrated and proven everyone a lie. See, when he came into power, he said, we came into this thing because the president or the junta who took over from the so-called democratically elected president of Burkina Faso, who has been looting the country for years. When that one took over in January, wasn't doing anything. So he took over and he said, we need to heal and help our people. See, when you hear these types of talk, you've heard it too many times, so no one really believes that, right? So most people didn't really believe it when he was saying that, because we've heard that talk over and over again. But he is really showing that. He's showing that he means business. And that's why he got overwhelmingly over 60% of the citizens of Burkina Faso supported and said that we want him to be our leader. I want you to take a look at some of the comments, because what I've just talked to you about, what I've just told you about, you won't find it anywhere. Understand this. What I'm telling you right now, you're not going to find it anywhere in mainstream media. This is not the message they want out. What they want out is to tell you that there's a dictator in Burkina Faso, and he has decided to stay in power. That's the message, right, from the media, from these so-called mainstream media. That is a message. There's a dictator in Burkina Faso, and he has decided, go figure, to stay in power for the next 5 years. That's the message. What they're not telling you is that the people of Burkina Faso forced him into that position and said, now you're going to lead us, whether you like it or not. So I want you to hear the voices of people from Burkina Faso, because you got to go to Twitter to go hear this. You can't see it on YouTube. It's not on YouTube. It's not on any of the platforms. No, you're not going to see it. You got to go to Twitter. So I want you to hear the voices. And then on top of the fact that I want you to hear the voices and the echoes from people in the West who are condemning this man and are still pushing out the propaganda about this man. Take a look at this. So here are a few things citizens in Burkina Faso are saying. They're saying things like, congratulations to our now official president of Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traoré. Hoping you can stay on the path, stay safe, and not be corrupted by the West, because there will be many attempts by them to remove you and put in one of their puppets leaders. And by the way, there already has been 2 attempts of assassination against his life already. They want him out of there. Here's another one. Anyone interested in uplifting their people should take inspiration from Burkina Faso's Traoré. Bureaucracy and careerism should be rooted out at all costs. Here's one from Jamaican journalist Barbara Blake Hannon. Congratulations, President Traoré. If democracy is the will of the people, then the Burkina Faso people's will has prevailed. 60% of 22 million in Burkina Faso are less than 21 years old. If they say they want Ibrahim Traoré as president, if this is not democracy, then I don't know what it is. Wow. A few days after he reduced ministers' and politicians' salary by 30% and increased workers' salary by 50%, the people of Burkina Faso have now forced Ibrahim Traoré to resign as interim president. He is now the official president of Burkina Faso for the next 5 years. That is what you're going to see overwhelmingly by the citizens of Burkina Faso. Now, hear the voices of propaganda Western media who go out there trying to distort and push out the false narrative about this man. Here's such a person. Here's Kenneth Roth, an attorney and a so-called human rights watch activist. Burkina Faso's military regime, in power since 2022's coup, will extend its rule for 5 years under an accord adopted during the national consultations. Why bother with the national consultations? The junta leader obviously likes power. Here's another one. There has been a widespread condemnation of Burkina Faso's military government. I want you to pay attention to this tone. There's been widespread condemnation of Burkina Faso's military government, which has announced an extension of its rule for another 5 years. How different is this from civilian rule, where elections are rigged and one person stays in power forever? So that is the tone you will hear from propaganda Western media or voices from the West and Europe. It's the same thing they've done to keep Africa under. It's to demonize our good presidents or good head of states or assassinate them. So this man is being compared to Thomas Sankara. Thomas Sankara was assassinated. He was taken out. This man had the exact same spirit of Thomas Sankara, who was a person who exemplified the Pan-African spirit. Here we go again with a man like Ibrahim Traoré. And what you know about the West, and we know, is that they're going to try to take him out. This is not the type of leader they want. This is not the type of leader they want leading Africa. You know, the type of one that, you know, that looks out for the people. The things they say that they want, you know, when they come out, when the West comes out and the Europe comes out to say, you know, Africa needs good leaders. You know, it's all such a mouthpiece. Africa needs people that look out for their people. You know, it's such a mouthpiece because they're such liars. But the moment we have leaders like that who look out for our own people, the interests of our countries, right? What do? They assassinate him. There's been already 2 attempts of assassination against this man's life. You want to guess who's behind it? You want to guess, and they're not going to stop. Because it cannot be said that Africa has such a leader who's young and who looks out for his people. And we've had many like that over the years, by the way. We've had many like that. And they've been assassinated. Because what a leader like this does is build Africa and cuts the West off. They know that. Because they know when it comes to Burkina Faso, they're not going to be tapping those resources anymore. They already know. Not with a guy like him. That's bad for business for them. They already know that. That those gold, those limestones, those cobalts, those coltan, those mineral resources that these people need for their cell phones, for their TVs, for the electric cars, for all the stuff they benefit with, for their what? Electricity, nuclear power plants. They know they need that from Africa, and they know that they can't buy it with fair market value, which is what they should be buying it for. But they want to loot Africa. So they need to go in there with a disguise, pay off some puppet president and just say, hey, here you go. Don't worry about it. Let our, companies come in here. Let our contractors from our companies, let them come in here. Don't worry about it. We'll keep greasing your palm and keep letting you have it. Don't worry about it. You're good. You, your family, your children are all good. Yes. But the rest of millions of people in those countries stay in abject poverty. That's what they've been doing for years. So a guy like this is bad for business. And I guarantee you, there are going to be more attempts in his life. And it's our responsibility to keep a watchful eye and expose such things. It's our responsibility. We owe it to Burkina Faso and to any other African country that has a president like this. He is exemplifying what other African presidents should be. He's shaming all of them. Because this man has done in a year and a half something that most of the African leaders have not been able to accomplish in 8 years of office. 8 years in office. He's a remarkable young man. And it's amazing that a country like Burkina Faso, a country like that, a small country, very insignificant, has been able to produce such a leader, a Pan-African in Africa, who exemplifies what it means to be an African, what it means to be a leader. And you have these old dogs that have been there for years. An embarrassment. And so I pray that we protect him. He does not have the making of a dictator. A dictator will not do what I just told you. There was another one like that too, Gaddafi, who they demonize. And look at his country right now. Look at where Libya is. Libya is in total ruins. When he was there, that country was thriving. But they called him a dictator, and they took him out. You want to guess what they're going to label this man as in the next couple of months, a couple of years coming? You want to guess? So I'm very, very proud of Ibrahim Traoré. And I hope that the people of Burkina Faso will continue to thrive. I hope your minerals and your resources bring to you all a type of riches and economic boost to your country. You deserve it. And I hope that your country really helps to curb a lot of the insurgencies that is going on. And I think that they are on the path to resolving that issue. I just hope that other countries will emulate what they're doing and form alliances with each other rather than trying to bring a foreign entity to come and secure your border. And all they do is steal your resources. And I hope we Africans will continue to keep a watchful eye and tell the stories, our stories for us, and not rely on propaganda media and coverage such as this. But we tell the world our story, just like what I'm doing right now. And I pray all the best for the people of Burkina Faso. I think you have done the right thing by electing or putting this man forth to be the president of your country. Anyway, thank you all for watching. Please like the video, share the content, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you all next time.
Nu vill jag kunna ge tillbaka allt jag inte kunnat ge förut. Det finns ingen annan där som kan stå här by my side, oh why. Sättet du rör på det får mig att dö för dig baby. För de här yardis, de vill ju bara dra ner oss. Men du är fett och vanlig. Och det jag lägger av min tid och jag vill ha dig. Du får mig känna safety. Jag kan nog leda baby. Och jag kommer aldrig ändra.